What's up, people? Welcome back to Next Round Ready. I'm your host, Chris. Today we have special guest AJ Green from the AI Collective. AJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Really excited to be here.
So, what is the AI Collective? What's the big vision and purpose around this company?
Yeah, great question. So, first and foremost, we are a community, and we're a community of pioneers around the world who come together to discuss what it's like to be human in the AI era. And notice I say human in the AI era instead of using AI in the human era. So we started this mission 3 years ago in San Francisco after the advent of ChatGPT. And basically we wanted to discuss, what is humanity's role in the future of technology? And I think when we first started, we never would have guessed that AI would have had the amount of traction that it has. And now it's infiltrated all over the world. And I'm sure we'll talk about that more later. But we have now scaled to having over 50 countries, about 150,000 total members and 200 plus chapters. And the real key is the human flourishing, right? So kind of the origin story is that we hosted these meetups. And again, it was just to bring people together to talk about the impact of technology on humanity. And lo and behold, people from other cities around the world started to come to San Francisco for different conferences, events, whatever else. And they said, hey, this is something really unique, really cool. Can I take it back to where I'm from? So that's when we started to go through our global expansion and really try to bring the message of AI Collective to all around the world. But yeah, that's kind of a little
Wow.
bit about how we got here.
I think that really matters right now because there's a lot of people, if they're not into AI, they think that we're going to have robots taking over tomorrow. And I think
Hmm.
that this is a way to sort of address that fear. It's literally just starting with conversations about what's happening and what progress looks like. And just so people, I
Exactly.
think when you learn more, you understand it more, that kind of removes that fear because that
Hmm.
uncertainty is what a lot makes a lot of people fearful.
100%. I think it's all about having conversations, right? It's very easy to get into this like dystopian mindset. Like you said, like imagine Terminator is what I hear from a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, there is valid fears to be had. We don't want to dismiss the fears of the future. And we think it's important to think like that, but we got to have conversations. And so something that we always try to do at every single event is one of our core principles is exchanging insights. So we don't necessarily need it to be a hive mind where everybody agrees with each other, but we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to the species of the human race to be like, hey, we have to have these conversations. And I think the fundamental thesis that I've come to the conclusion of is that the worst outcome for humanity is where 1% of people control 99% of the population by technology.
Yes.
And like you said, it's like the more that people understand, the more that it's in your space, you have knowledge of it, the less fearful that you become, and the more you can actually start to make decisions of like, how do you use it? Do you decide when to use it, when not to use it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I think especially if those people that are in the spaces are people that are making companies in the spaces, because the
Exactly.
owner of this AI company or that AI company, whether it's hard tech like robots and stuff, or if it's just
Hmm.
software, I think people need to hear from both sides to really understand that the goal here is to make life better, not
Hmm.
necessarily to take over the world and enslave people. I think people go to the worst case scenario, man. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It is pretty crazy. But yeah, like I think, one stat that is really helpful for people to know is 62% of our population or community is founders and investors. So there's a lot of people that are shaping the next future of businesses, either both at the founder front or on the capital side. So there's a lot of decision makers who come to the events, and I hope that the impact that we have is thinking about, hey, no matter what you're building, how is this impacting humanity? And that comes from my own background, building prior to being in this space. And I think it's something that a lot of our community shares the same values.
That's so important. So let's talk about that part with the founders. How can a founder benefit from being in this space?
So, great question, great question. And I think it has a lot to do with the founders themselves. So, having been a previous founder, I think you go through a couple different stages. So, I think that one of the things that I like to say is learn, earn, serve. Right. So, like on your path to entrepreneurship, on your path to your company, as a founder, there's going to be a time in your life which you're learning. And hopefully that never stops. But there's a period in time which you're learning a lot. And people who come to the collective events can learn a lot about AI. They can learn about how it's being applied, what's the latest tools, what's the trends that we're seeing, what's the market opportunity. So there's a lot of learning that takes place. This can happen virtually or in person too. One thing I haven't mentioned is that we've hosted about 1,000 events. So
Oh,
we have a
wow.
pretty, yeah, we have a pretty established curriculum of like how to educate people on AI. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is earn, which is that, hey, can you find potential investors at these events, potential customers or partners? And we always say that we do not shill. So like there's no point in time at which we're going to be like, hey, send everybody your pitch deck, you know? But we do have a lot of demo nights and pitch nights. So we give opportunities to founders to get in front of investors, and we're kind of a conduit in that sense. So the demo nights are one of my favorite things that we do. It's kind of what we were first known for. And imagine that you are a founder and you're working on your company, you're going for a fundraise. What happens if you can go in front of a room of 500 investors and in a 5-minute pitch walk away with so many introductions that could change the business outcome? So that's the middle portion. The last portion is the serve. So if you're an established founder, say you're a serial founder, you've already reached your unicorn status, and you're now at the point where you want to give back in forms of mentorship or judging, or just sharing your insights with the rest of the world. That's also part of what we do, where you can join part of like a technical advisory board or a special interest group, and that allows you to share your expertise with others.
That's really valuable. I think from a founder perspective, I meet a lot of founders that are in the AI space now. And I think
Mm-hmm.
having a community you can go to get the relationships is huge because you see all the bigger AI companies getting all the investment. They're getting all the funding. But I think that will start to trickle down to the other companies that are being built now that people just might not be aware of. I know it's easy to see Anthropic and ChatGPT, and that's like at the top. But outside of them and Google, I still think there are a lot of companies that are going to be built in the AI space and really change the world.
100%. And I think too, like one thing that I talk about with founders is, of course, to be venture backed and to be something that's ultimately scalable is important, right? Because that's part of the economy. But there's so much value in also not doing that. And this is coming from somebody who's in venture. I tell people like, hey, you don't always have to take checks. Like being bootstrapped and having what we call micro SaaS still changes lives, in the sense that micro SaaS, just to put it out there, is people that build SaaS that don't scale to unicorn status, so they don't reach 1 billion ARR, but they might provide for this person's livelihood. It might be a lifestyle. It might be, a team of 10, a team of 50 even, where you're now having impact on their lives. And sometimes you can do that bootstrapped as well. So you don't have any investors that you have to turn to and you're in full control. I think that's a super valuable thing. So I was actually doing a talk on this yesterday with a local, funny enough, it was a school district local to where I live for some volunteer work. And one of the things that we were talking about is the emergence of these founders in micro SaaS being that like, hey, as people look to go to college and they look to go to trade schools and they're thinking about what's next, and these are for high schoolers, which is a fun time. One thing that we're seeing a lot more of is people that are like, hey, actually, I would rather own my own business. I'd rather be a founder. And AI is definitely the best opportunity to do
Yes.
that. Speaking from personal experience, like my background is I was not born with a silver spoon. I was not born next to a GPU. I was non-technical for most of my life. Yeah, like I had all the stacks, all the cards stacked against me. Where like I was an athlete. I was actually a pro athlete, an Olympic weightlifter, and I had an injury that left me ultimately paralyzed for a little bit, and I had to go through 2 years of rehab. And that's when I was introduced to AI. And from that point moving forwards, AI has completely changed my life. And so personally, it was something that I felt before. And, just for anybody who's listening to this as well, if it gives you any type of solace, I also didn't think that I was smart enough to be an AI. I was like, hey, that's for really smart people. I use my muscles. I don't use my brain. Sounds really bad to say, but like that was my perspective at that age of my life. And AI has given me so many opportunities. It allowed me to start multiple businesses, exit, do venture. It has changed my life. And that's why I wanted to get off the sidelines and really get into the driver's seat and build a community behind it.
That makes sense. Okay, now hearing the background of what you've done, it makes sense how you've gotten here to be around so many of the founders. Because the way you position this is that this collective is specifically to serve the founders, and it's not necessarily because when I hear about these communities, especially with founders in mind, it's usually somebody trying to price gouge. Like, I want to get as much money as I can out of founders, or you have to pay a ton of money to come to our events. And it's just so many things that are set up right now to take money from founders or equity even. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think my personal take, I think it's fundamentally flawed. And I really think that a lot of people in the space do not have the right intentions. They're trying to extract value, they're never trying to give value. And so part of this is our community is nonprofit. We don't charge a dime for any event. All the 1,000 events around the world have been completely free. Even when you go to do pitch nights and demo nights, and we make intros to investors for you, all that is completely free of charge. And in fact, like that's the last thing we want the founders to think about is like, how do we open up the wallets? We want them to think about like, hey, how can you actually learn, come together, build a community? That's what community is all about. So yeah, from day one, that's been a huge focus for us.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It makes so much sense because I think it would be harder to say join this collective if the fee is like 5 grand a month or something. I've been seeing a lot of this stuff, man. So it's
Yeah.
really good the way that you've positioned it. So, what are the long term goals with the community? You know, what do
Mm,
you want it to look like in like 5 years?
Great question. So I try not to ever think that far out in AI. So like I keep it to a year. Personally, I keep it to a year. I
I
have
get
like,
it.
yeah, I have like musings of a 3 year roadmap, but like 1 year, I'm like, okay, I know that I can execute. There's a lot of tangibles here. But even over the next like 3 years, is like a musing, is I really want the AI collective to be its own form of an economy. And what I mean by this is
Hmm.
that, like we said, it's not about extracting value, it's exchanging insights, it's bringing people together. And one thing that I'm a really big proponent of is social behavior. So, like, could we incentivize, again, give value at every single opportunity to incentivize people to connect more? And I think a bigger part of the thesis here is that in 3 to 5 years' time, I know this is to be true in 5 years for sure, which is that I fundamentally believe that humans will value connection more than anything else. Kind of the ethos behind this is like, as intelligence nears the cost of zero, trust and human capability and like human connection is priceless. So I think people will continue to want to come together more and more, especially as we're polarized with the social media and everything's becoming digitized and so on and so forth. I think that's my fundamental bet is that people are going to want to come together. The part behind the economy is pretty interesting, where I think I talk about this in a couple of different manifestos that I've written, where basically I call this as institution 4.0. So if you think about this, when we first had human civilization, we had tribes, right? It was people that connected together and they recognized humanity that, hey, I'm stronger with someone else than just by myself, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things that makes humans really different than a lot of species on planet Earth. The next thing was institutions. So, like, hey, can we actually have financial incentives behind these institutions? And are people stronger as groups of people or as institutions? And I think so. We saw that emergence, especially with a lot of industrial revolution and whatnot, that corporations were the next form of community. The next thing after that was platforms. And so platforms were like the social media, like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the way back from the 2000s up until recent. The reason why I think communities are the next form of economy is because I think people fundamentally want to support people that they trust and they know personally. For example, like
Yes.
when you go onto Instagram, every single stroke that you make, every swipe, whatever, is going back to benefit Meta. And imagine that you had a stake in that platform, or imagine that you had value that came out of it. So it's not benefiting a corporation, you're actually benefiting yourself. So I think that it's a lot of like circular exchange for value where, hey, we bring more investors on, they invest in more founders move to mentorship brings on new people. So it's like a recursive flywheel rather than something where it's just extracting value at every exchange.
That makes so much sense because the in-person stuff, I saw it like I've been speaking at events and hosting my own and stuff like that
Oh
before
yeah.
COVID. Man, that time during COVID was insane because all people wanted to do was get on Zoom and get on video and feel like they were around other people. And I think it really changed a lot of us in our DNA where now people prioritize it. I do think that the community stuff, I don't think they
Totally.
will ever go away. People will always want something like that, especially as, like you said, we get to the point now where you can't even tell what video is real or not. Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
already there. So,
Yep.
having that relationship and having that reliability, being able to go and shake somebody's hand, I think that will be like probably the most valuable form of currency in the world in 5 years is like
Oh yeah.
reputation. It
Mm-hmm.
like on LinkedIn, people knowing
100%.
you and knowing you're a real person in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can't buy that. That's the thing. That can't be
Exactly.
purchased somewhere. It just takes time to build.
Someone asked me at the event yesterday, what do you think is future proof? Like, and I'm speaking to give context, I'm speaking to a bunch of like upperclassmen in high school who are about to head into college or make their transitions into their careers. And so they asked me very candidly, like, if you were in my shoes, where would you be looking to have a career today? And my answer was like, things with humans, things with people, right? Like anything that can be done in front of a computer, AI can do today. And if it can't, it will do very soon. Right.
Yeah.
So the things that you cannot replace is that human to human connection. And that's why I think we made the right bet at the right time.
That's why I'm so into podcasting because it is like a
Totally.
literal cheat code to where we're going. Because
Hmm.
for me, when I build connections and relationships, it's not just about getting a name and email. You know,
Hmm.
anybody can go and scrape a website or whatever platform and get a bunch of those. What you can't duplicate is like interviews day after day, week after week. You can't
Hmm.
replicate that work. And if you want to, it's going to take you years like it took me. There's no way to
Exactly.
speed up that process, you know? And I tell a lot of founders this. That's the power of having your own platform in terms of like a podcast. Because I'm not saying every founder has to have one, but where we're going, you need
Hmm.
something like it that shows your audience, your customers, your base that I'm a real person that you can talk to me. Like they need to be able to see you.
Exactly.
And I don't think founders are prioritizing that just yet, not in the right ways at least.
Yeah. I think, I talk about this a lot because I've built personal brands for quite a bit of time previously in fitness, now and technology and AI. I think if I could summarize the personal brand into something, it's got to be personal, right? It's the first word. And I think there's so many people that want that polished output and that are looking, they're either chasing the clout of what they're seeing others doing, which again is not authentic to themselves, or they're trying to have it so polished that every single thing looks like it's put together all the time. And I agree. I think like if you want to build an audience, right? And we know building an audience is important because I think distribution is one of the most invaluable things of the next 10 years for
Yes.
sure. We can talk about that 100%. But it has to be personal. People have to be able to relate to you. Yeah, I think podcasting is so, so smart as well because it's like the power of that you have it in person, but then multiplied at a scale of digital, which I think is genius.
And I think with the AI world specifically, it's a lot of competition for the founders. It
Hmm.
seems like there's a new company every day going viral or raising $100 million. It's just nonstop. And I think if you're an AI founder, you have to find a way to create leverage that other people can't create. You have to
Hmm.
develop that. And in my opinion, just getting in front of a camera is the best way because people see you as a real person. And you can't always wait on events or getting on stage. Although that's great, I think it's part of it. And even being a part of communities like yours, you have to find a way to stand out as an AI founder today.
Hmm. 100%. I think, a really great mental model for me on this is when the cost of intelligence goes down to zero and everybody can create whatever they want. We're not saying we're here today, but very, very shortly, and we kind of are with a little bit of vibe coding.
Yeah.
It's like you can really make things so quickly. How do you have that product stand out? So, like you as the founder, how do you stand out? And then you as the product, how does that stand out? Because, for example, when we're reviewing startup decks, and it's like, hey, everything's got the same design language. They're all trying to solve the same problem. They have a similar tech stack. Like, my question that I ask all the founders is, why are you the right person to solve this problem? And why is this a problem that desperately needs to be solved? And be obsessed with that problem. We could talk all day about that, but you got to stand out.
And one of my other questions is part of your community with the mentorship and that kind of leadership and guidance.
Hmm.
Do you have the investors also giving that insight and that input to the founders? Or is it like most of the investors are there just to either write the check or not?
No, no, no. Yeah, great question. So it is a matchmaking service. So we don't have a fund. So there's no upside for us, whether they write a check or not. It is just for the founders. And I would say on average, the feedback that they receive is probably the most valuable thing. Like when people are coming off of the demo night stage, the number one thing that I'm hearing is not like, hey, we got this amazing check, because yes, that is great. But the feedback I think is also just as important, where, there's no shortage of capital being invested in AI, right? But having somebody who has lots of experience and can quickly point you in the right direction is so valuable. So we do this virtually and in person as well. So people like startups can present virtually to a panel of judges and get feedback from anywhere in the world, which is trying to democratize access. But then if you're also in the demo night hubs, then you can also get live panel feedback. And not okay, one more thing that I'll say is not just from the judges, but we've actually built an app to use at the demo nights where every single person in the audience gives you feedback. So for
That's
example,
good.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So, for example, we had one at the beginning of this week on Tuesday, right? It was in San Francisco, had like 800 people that attended. There were 6 demos that pitched. Imagine the value to those demos when they get hundreds of bits of feedback in from a 5-minute pitch. And people that again are on the cusp of the industry as well.
That's good, man. I can see just why a founder would want to join this. And you said you're in 50 countries, you're
Mhm.
all over the US. How
Oh
can a
yeah.
founder join? What are the prerequisites? What do I have to have going on?
Yeah, great question. And honestly, there's not a lot of prerequisites. Like for us, it's about mission alignment. We don't care about pedigree. Yeah, so we don't have too many requirements. We don't care if you have the pedigree. We don't care if you have the experience per se. We have an application portal and we have people go through a series of interviews for mission alignment. That's the number one thing for us. So whether you come from Harvard or if it's a local college, if you come from 50 years of experience or 5 years of experience, of course, like there's a threshold where like you have to be somewhat of an expert because you have to be leading others. So therefore, there is like a little bit of that role, but it's really about aligning with the mission. So we want people that fundamentally believe the future is for humans and that want to get off of the sidelines and get into the driver's seat and be a node in their local ecosystem. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in joining a chapter or starting a chapter, you just go to aicollective.com. You can go to join the team or start a chapter is the backslash. And then now you just go to make an application and then our team will reach out.
Man, that's absolutely
Accessible.
perfect. Man, AJ, this was a really great conversation. I think that what you're doing is just perfect for the startup world, for the ecosystem of AI as well. Man, this is really exciting. I look forward to hearing more about the journey.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.